For years, the streets whispered about it. Fans speculated, blogs ran wild, and everyone in the rap world had one question: what really happened between Lil Durk and THF Bayzoo? They came up together, repped the same blocks, shared the same pain, and stood side by side when loyalty was rare. To the outside world, they were family, brothers who built each other up while the world watched OEF rise to the top. But lately, something changed. The energy got darker. The smiles disappeared. And behind those quiet posts, cryptic lyrics, and sudden silences, there was tension. Real tension. The kind that doesn't start on camera. It starts in conversations nobody hears. Now, after months of rumors and endless speculation, Lil Durk has finally broken his silence. And what he said shocked fans across the globe. His words weren't bitter. They were real, honest. The kind of truth that doesn't come from hate but from heartbreak. Because when you share trenches, secrets, and scars with someone, betrayal doesn't hit like a diss track. It hits like a wound that never heals. Durk didn't name drop for clout. He didn't throw shade for streams. He simply said, "It was all love until..." And that unfinished sentence told a story deeper than any interview could. So what happened? What turned brotherhood into silence? Was it money? Was it loyalty? Or something darker? A split that runs deeper than the internet will ever know? In this video, we're breaking down the full truth behind the Durk and Bayzoo fallout. From their Chicago roots to the rise of OEF to the moment everything started to crack. You'll hear the story behind the lyrics, the signs everyone missed, and the reason Durk finally decided to speak up. Because sometimes in the rap game, the loudest explosions come from the quietest people. And when Durk finally speaks, the streets listen. Stay tuned. This one isn't about beef. It's about betrayal, loyalty, and lessons learned the hard way. Welcome to Rap Shock, where the real stories behind hip-hop finally come to light. Before the fame, before the platinum plaques, before OTF became a worldwide name, there was just Durk and Bayzoo, two young men from the south side of Chicago trying to survive the storm. The city was cold, not just in weather but in spirit. Every block told a story of loyalty, loss, and lessons learned too early. In that world, trust was rare, and Durk found it in a few people who shared his struggle. One of them was THF Bayzoo. They weren't just collaborators, they were family. The streets knew it, the fans saw it, and their chemistry was undeniable. From the trenches to the studio, the energy between them was built on shared hunger. When Durk was building OEF, Bayzoo was right there beside him, holding it down when times got dark. Together, they turned pain into power, transforming real-life battles into music that echoed through every hood in Chicago. Bayzoo wasn't just a name in the background. He was part of the core. The OEF circle was tight, and Bayzoo stood as one of the most respected members. Even when controversy surrounded Durk or Vaughn, Bayzoo was solid, always speaking loyalty, always standing on business. They moved like brothers, celebrating each other's wins, defending each other's names, and sharing moments the world would never see. When King Vaughn rose to fame, Bayzoo supported him like family too. The bond inside OEF looked unbreakable. Fans saw it as the definition of real. Men who came from nothing, built something, and stood by each other no matter what. But behind the smiles, the pressure was building. Fame changes everything. Not always because of ego, but because of what comes with it. Money, attention, and people whispering from the sidelines. Durk started becoming one of the biggest names in rap, traveling the world, handling label business, and facing constant legal heat. Bayzoo, on the other hand, was still moving through the streets, still keeping it raw, still repping THF with pride. Their worlds began to drift, not because of hate, but because of growth. Two different paths, two different realities. But that's how tension quietly begins, not with betrayal, but with distance. The phone calls become less frequent. The energy feels off. The same brothers who once talked daily now communicate through others. And before you even realize it, silence becomes the loudest message. Still, if you asked anyone back then, they would have told you, Durk and Bayzoo? They solid. Ain't no beef there, because that's what it looked like from the outside, loyalty that could never break. But the thing about loyalty in the trenches is it's always tested. There were whispers, small things that fans noticed, comments under posts, lyrics that sounded a little too specific, interviews where Durk avoided names, and posts from Bayzoo that seemed filled with emotion. The type of tension you can feel even without words. People began asking questions online. What's going on with Durk and Bayzoo? But as always, Durk kept quiet. He's never been the type to air out issues online. If something was going on, it stayed behind closed doors. That's what made this silence even louder. Because when the connection fades between brothers, fans can feel it too. But nobody truly knew the story, not until now. Because when Durk finally decided to speak on it, his words weren't about drama or beef. They were about hurt. The kind of hurt you feel when loyalty starts to blur, when the people you love move differently, and when the streets that made you brothers start to pull you apart. Durk said it best himself. It was all love until, and that pause said more than a whole interview could. This was the moment everything began to shift. The moment when years of loyalty, pain, and brotherhood would be tested in ways neither of them expected. The deeper you get into the game, the heavier loyalty becomes. What starts as brotherhood turns into pressure, expectations, pride, and the weight of being real in a world that's constantly testing you. That's exactly where things started to shift between Lil Durk and THF Bayzoo. When Durk's fame skyrocketed, his life changed fast. Sold-out shows, million-dollar deals, interviews, and tours across the world. But with all that success came distance. Bayzoo was still solidly in the trenches, holding down the street side of THF, keeping the foundation alive while Durk's name went global. Fans began to notice they weren't appearing together as often. No more joint lives, no more studio sessions, no more playful jabs online. At first, it didn't look like beef, just different lanes. But those who knew the Chicago scene could feel something off. The connection that once looked unbreakable now seemed fragile. And when Bayzoo started dropping subtle posts, the kind filled with energy and double meaning, people paid attention. Lines like "they forget who was there before the cameras" and "real ones don't need to beg for loyalty" began making rounds online. The internet did what it always does. It added fire to the smoke. YouTubers started speculating. Blogs ran with headlines like "THF Bayzoo throws shade at Lil Durk" or "Trouble inside THF." Even though neither Durk nor Bayzoo confirmed anything, the tension grew with every post. But behind those rumors was something real: hurt. Durk had always been private about his inner circle. He learned early that fame could twist brotherhood into competition. And the more successful he became, the more people started questioning his loyalty, not realizing how many bridges he was trying to keep standing. Bayzoo, on the other hand, felt like real ones were being pushed aside. To him, it wasn't about fame, it was about respect. In the middle of it all, King Von's death changed everything. That loss broke THF in ways outsiders could never understand. Von was the link between so many people, including Durk and Bayzoo. When Von passed, the entire structure of their circle shifted. Emotions ran high. Trust became thin. Everyone dealt with pain differently. And sometimes, pain looks like silence. After Von's death, Durk threw himself deeper into his music. Every lyric started carrying weight. Messages buried in bars that only real fans could decode. Some of his verses started sounding like reflections of the tension he felt with people he once called brothers. In tracks like HHHHA and Piss Me Off, fans thought they heard undertones, not direct shots, but emotions from someone who had seen loyalty fade. Meanwhile, Bayzoo stayed quiet for the most part, but his loyalty was still clear. When Durk faced legal heat, Bayzoo stood behind him. When the internet tried to twist narratives, he defended the name. That's what made this situation hurt even more. It wasn't about hate, it was about misunderstanding. Friends close to both of them said it best: there ain't no beef. It's just distance. But in the rap world, even distance gets twisted into drama. The fans love a story, and the media will build one if you don't tell it yourself. So, When Durk finally spoke out, his words carried power. Sitting down in an interview, his tone was calm, not bitter. He didn't point fingers. He spoke with emotion, almost like a man trying to make peace with the past. It was all love until it wasn't, he said quietly. Sometimes you outgrow people you never thought you would. Those words hit harder than any diss track, because real fans understood exactly what he meant. This wasn't about ego or money. It was about time, pain, and the truth that sometimes loyalty doesn't end in betrayal. It just fades quietly. Bayzoo, for his part, never disrespected Durk publicly. Even when fans tried to stir chaos, he kept it low-key. That silence itself spoke volumes, because sometimes real respect means saying nothing at all. But the internet doesn't let things rest. Every bar Durk dropped, every post Bayzoo made, fans read between the lines. Everyone wanted to know, is OTF breaking apart? Is Durk cutting ties with his old circle? The truth, though, is far more complex. This wasn't a simple falling out. It was a reflection of how hard it is to keep brotherhood alive when fame, loss, and survival collide. Because in the trenches, loyalty isn't just a word. It's life or death. And when you come from the same struggle, watching that bond change hurts in ways the world can't understand. When Lil Durk finally spoke those words, it was all love until the internet exploded. Fans froze the clip, reposted it across platforms, and started decoding every syllable. Within hours, hashtags were trending. Hashtag Durk and Bayzoo, hashtag OTF drama, and hashtag it was a love until flooded timelines. Everyone wanted to know, was this Durk's way of addressing THF Bayzoo? The streets were talking heavy. Chicago blogs lit up overnight. Podcasts debated for hours, and fans dissected every lyric Durk ever wrote. But here's the truth. Durk didn't have to name drop anyone. Those who really knew him, and those who came up watching OTF's rise, understood exactly who and what he was talking about. It wasn't beef. It wasn't a diss. It was closure. But when you're Durk, one of the biggest artists in the game, a man who's turned street pain into worldwide fame, every word becomes a headline. And this headline hit harder than most. Bayzoo, on the other hand, stayed calm. No diss tracks. No sade. No replays. Just silence. The kind of silence that carries pride and pain at the same time. His people posted cryptic messages like, "Real ones don't respond online," and "Some stories aim for the net." The message was clear. This wasn't a war. It was a misunderstanding that had gone public. But that didn't stop fans from choosing sides. Some said Durk was changing, that fame had made him distant. Others defended him, saying he'd been through too much to keep dragging old issues. Both sides had points, but the real story was deeper than what anyone online could see. Because while fans debated, Durk was evolving. He wasn't just a street rapper from Inglewood anymore. He was a global brand, a leader, a father, and a man who'd lost too many people to the streets. He didn't want to keep replaying old pain. He wanted peace. His interviews, his tone, even his social media presence started reflecting maturity. Durk knew that every word he said would echo across the internet, so he spoke with caution. In another clip, he said quietly, "I still got love for everybody I came up with. Even if we don't talk no more, it's never hate." That single line silenced half the rumors instantly. It wasn't anger, it was acceptance. Meanwhile, Bayzoo's people made it known he had love too. Despite what fans tried to stir up, there was mutual respect under the surface. Because when you've been through life and death situations with someone, when you've sat in cars praying you'd make it home, when you've shared dreams of getting out the trenches, you don't erase that with one argument. Still, it hurt fans to see that energy gone. The chemistry that once made OTF unshakable felt missing. The duo that represented loyalty through chaos now seemed miles apart. And that's when people began realizing, maybe this wasn't about betrayal at all. Maybe it was just life. Sometimes when people grow, they grow in different directions. And when you're both public figures, that distance looks like beef. But behind closed doors, it's just two men walking different paths. One focused on music and peace, the other still holding down the streets they both came from. As weeks went by, Durk dropped another song. Raw, emotional, reflective. In it, he spoke about losing people he thought would always be there, about fake love, and about how fame can expose everything. Fans instantly connected it to Bayzoo again, even though Durk never confirmed. The thing is, when real emotion meets real history, people can't help but connect the dots. Then came the viral moment. Bayzoo pulled up to a show where Durk's name was being shouted by the crowd. He didn't say a word, didn't act wild, just smiled, nodded, and kept moving. That single move said everything. No beef, no hate, just space. The streets saw it and respected it, because that's what maturity looks like when you come from the mud. Not reacting, not feeding the drama, just moving forward. But while both men tried to keep things silent, the internet wasn't done. People wanted more. They wanted confrontation, a collab, something. And when neither gave them that, they turned it into theories. Durk cut him off, Bayzoo fell out, THF breaking apart. The reality, though, was much simpler. They'd just grown apart. In one of his later interviews, Durk summarized it perfectly. Sometimes, you gotta let people be who they are. Ain't no hate, ain't no love lost. Just lessons. That's what makes this story powerful. It's not about dices or drama. It's about evolution. Because real loyalty isn't about staying together forever. It's about still having respect when life takes you separate ways. When the dust began to settle, one thing became clear. This wasn't a war, it was a wound. A wound between two men who once called each other brothers. Lil Durk and THF Bayzoo weren't enemies. They were two survivors from the same battlefield, walking different roads after everything they'd lost along the way. But in the age of the internet, silence is never quiet. Every time Durk posted a photo or dropped a verse, people read into it. Every time Bayzoo made a move, fans linked it back to Durk. It became a constant cycle. Blogs twisting words, clickbait titles, and YouTubers building stories out of shadows. Durk understood the game, though. He'd seen it all. Fake headlines, false narratives, and people trying to pit friends against each other for clicks. That's why he chose peace. Instead of responding with anger, he focused on music, family, and growth. His next few interviews showed a new Durk, wiser, calmer, and less reactive. He said something that stuck with millions of fans. If I ever had love for you, it's still there. I just don't move the same no more. That wasn't a shot, that was healing. A message to everyone, not just Bayzoo, that Durk was choosing maturity over chaos. Bayzoo, on the other hand, remained real to himself. He didn't jump online, didn't feed rumors. Instead, he kept doing what he always did, repping THF, staying active in the streets, and supporting Chicago talent from the background. That silence showed strength, because sometimes the loudest message is the one you never say. Inside Chicago, people close to both of them confirmed what fans suspected. There was no hate, just distance. Life had taken them to different spaces. Durk had responsibilities that stretched far beyond the block, while Bayzoo continued holding down the real energy of the streets. It wasn't betrayal, it was evolution. Still, that didn't stop the nostalgia. Fans missed the old days, Durk, Vaughn, and Bayzoo laughing on Instagram Live, vibing in the studio, and showing that brotherhood energy that made THF more than a label. For so many fans, that bond was hope, proof that real love could survive fame and pain. But the truth is, every real story has chapters. Some are loud and full of life. Others are quiet and painful. The Durk-Bayzoo bond didn't end. It just changed form. They might not be side by side anymore, but the respect never disappeared. And even though Durk never called names, his actions spoke volumes. He started helping more young Chicago artists, showing love to the city that raised him, and making it clear that he was still connected to his roots. Because no matter how far he goes, the streets that built him, the people like Bayzoo who shared those days, are still part of his DNA. On the other side, Bayzoo's name still rings strong in the city. In interviews with local rappers and street insiders, his presence is always mentioned with respect. Bayzoo's solid, they say. He don't talk much, but he's still real. And that's exactly what's kept his name alive, consistency. In the grand picture, this whole situation wasn't about drama. It was about growth. About how fame, loss, and life can shift relationships, no matter how deep they once were. Durk's story and Bayzoo's silence both taught the same lesson. Loyalty isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet respect from a distance. And in a world where people air out every argument online, their restraint was rare. They both proved that not every fallout needs to become a war. Sometimes you just keep moving, focused, grateful, and grown. For OTF, this chapter was more than a rumor. It was a reminder. A reminder that even when things change, the foundation built from loyalty, pain, and ambition still stands. Because no matter what anyone says, OEF isn't just music, it's a legacy. A movement born from real struggle and real love. And whether together or apart, everyone who helped build that foundation will always be part of that story. For so many fans, that bond was hope. Proof that real love could survive fame and pain. But the truth is, every real story has chapters. Some are loud and full of life. Others are quiet and painful. The Durk-Bayzoo bond didn't end. It just changed form. They might not be side by side anymore, but the respect never disappeared. And even though Durk never called names, his actions spoke volumes. He started helping more young Chicago artists, showing love to the city that raised him, and making it clear that he was still connected to his roots. Because no matter how far he goes, the streets that built him, the people like Bayzoo who shared those days, are still part of his DNA. On the other side, Bayzoo's name still rings strong in the city. In interviews with local rappers and street insiders, his presence is always mentioned with respect. Bayzoo's solid, they say. He don't talk much, but he's still real. And that's exactly what's kept his name alive: consistency. In the grand picture, this whole situation wasn't about drama. It was about growth. About how fame, loss, and life can shift relationships, no matter how deep they once were. Durk's story and Bayzoo's silence both taught the same lesson. Loyalty isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet respect from a distance. And in a world where people air out every argument online, their restraint was rare. They both proved that not every fallout needs to become a war. Sometimes you just keep moving, focused, grateful, and grown. For OTF, this chapter was more than a rumor. It was a reminder. A reminder that even when things change, the foundation built from loyalty, pain, and ambition still stands. Because no matter what anyone says, OEF isn't just music, it's a legacy. A movement born from real struggle and real love. And whether together or apart, everyone who helped build that foundation will always be part of that story. Lil Durk and THF Bayzoo weren't enemies. They were two survivors from the same battlefield, walking different roads after everything they'd lost along the way. But in the age of the internet, silence is never quiet. Every time Durk posted a photo or dropped a verse, people read into it. Every time Bayzoo made a move, fans linked it back to Durk. It became a constant cycle. Blogs twisting words, clickbait titles, and YouTubers building stories out of shadows. Durk understood the game, though. He'd seen it all. Fake headlines, false narratives, and people trying to pit friends against each other for clicks. That's why he chose peace. Instead of responding with anger, he focused on music, family, and growth. His next few interviews showed a new Durk, wiser, calmer, and less reactive. He said something that stuck with millions of fans. "If I ever had love for you, it's still there. I just don't move the same no more." That wasn't a shot, that was healing. A message to everyone, not just Bayzoo, that Durk was choosing maturity over chaos. Bayzoo, on the other hand, remained real to himself. He didn't jump online, didn't feed rumors. Instead, he kept doing what he always did, repping THF, staying active in the streets, and supporting Chicago talent from the background. That silence showed strength, because sometimes the loudest message is the one you never say. Inside Chicago, people close to both of them confirmed what fans suspected. There was no hate, just distance. Life had taken them to different spaces. Durk had responsibilities that stretched far beyond the block, while Bayzoo continued holding down the real energy of the streets. It wasn't betrayal, it was evolution. Still, that didn't stop the nostalgia. Fans missed the old days, Durk, Vaughn, and Bayzoo laughing on Instagram Live, vibing in the studio, and showing that brotherhood energy that made OEF more than a label. When Durk speaks about staying solid, about remembering where he came from, about never forgetting those who held him down, there's an unspoken respect for everyone who played a role in his journey, including Bayzoo. Because before the fame, before the noise, there were moments of real brotherhood. Moments that the internet will never see, but that shaped the man Durk is today. It's easy for outsiders to misunderstand silence, to mistake distance for hate. But the truth is, sometimes silence is love. It's choosing not to add fuel to rumors. It's understanding that some bonds don't need to be explained, just remembered. And that's what makes this story more than gossip. It's a mirror, a reflection of what happens when success meets loyalty, and how the people who once shared your hunger might not always share your direction. But one thing's for sure, both Durk and Bayzoo carved their names into Chicago history. They're part of a story that'll be told for years. How young men from the same streets turned struggle into strength and pain into power. Even if they don't stand side by side anymore, the respect runs deep. The city knows it, the fans know it, and deep down, both of them know it too. Because real loyalty doesn't end, it evolves. And when you strip away all the fame, all the headlines, and all the speculation, you're left with two men who came from the same war, survived it, and carried their lessons into the next chapter. At Rap Shock, we don't chase clout, we chase the truth. This story wasn't about drama. It was about growth, loyalty, and evolution in the hardest industry on earth. While others just repeat what the blogs say, we bring you the real side, the emotion, the history, and the message behind every silence. Lil Durk and THF Bayzoo's story reminds us that sometimes the biggest shock isn't in the fight, it's in the peace that follows. Stay locked in, because here at Rap Shock, we'll keep uncovering the real stories behind the game. Stories of love, loss, brotherhood, and everything in between. Because in this world of fake news and forced beefs, truth hits harder than any diss track. 100 points. And that's the truth the world needed to hear. Raw, real, and straight from the heart. Lil Durk and THF Bayzoo's story isn't about beef. It's about brotherhood, distance, and growth. In a world where everyone's chasing drama, these two showed that silence can speak louder than hate. If you felt that message, if you respect loyalty, growth, and the real struggles behind the fame, then you already know what time it is. Fire. This is Rap Shock, the only place where we break down the truth behind every headline, every lyric, and every untold story in hip-hop. We don't twist facts, we reveal them. So hit that like, drop your thoughts in the comments, and make sure to subscribe, because the next story we uncover might just change how you see the rap game forever. Rap Shock, where real stories never die. 100 points high voltage. So, when Durk said, it was all love until, maybe he didn't mean it ended there. Maybe he meant, it was all love then, and it's still love now, just from a distance. And that's what makes this story powerful. It's not about beef or betrayal. It's about brothers who learned that sometimes peace is louder than pain. As the story of Lil Durk and THF Bayzoo unfolded, fans began to realize something powerful. This wasn't a tale of betrayal or revenge. It was a story about real life, about what happens when loyalty meets growth and love meets reality. The world wanted a feud, but what they got was something much deeper: understanding. Durk's final words on the matter weren't loud. They weren't emotional outbursts or dramatic headlines. They were calm, reflective, and filled with quiet strength. In one interview, he said, "Sometimes you love people enough to let them go. Ain't no beef, ain't no hate, just space. That's part of growing up." And that single statement changed the tone completely. It reminded fans that behind the fame, behind the money, behind the chains and shows, these are still human beings who carry pain, love, and memories from the same trenches they fought to escape. Bayzoo didn't respond with anger either. He stayed grounded, still showing respect for the people he came up with, still representing his side with pride. His silence wasn't weakness, it was maturity. Because in a time when everyone airs out every argument online, real ones handle things off camera. The media eventually moved on, but the lesson stayed. The streets realized that what looked like a fallout was actually a reflection of two men trying to protect their peace in a world that profits off their pain. And if you look closely, you can still feel the connection between them. Not in words, not in posts, but in the energy,